would be the biggest fight that the UFC could make?
Like that is extraordinary power.
UFC heavyweight champion Jon Jones is prepping for a major showdown with two-time former champ Stipe Miocic later this year. But that's not all he's thinking about. Even before stepping into the octagon with Miocic, Jon's mind is on what could be a massive fight. He's eyeing a battle with Alex Pereira, a fight that could truly stamp his legacy in UFC history. And this is the real reason why Jon Jones wants to fight Alex Pereira. Widely regarded as the greatest UFC fighter of all time, Jon Jones has a stellar mixed martial arts record that includes being the youngest champion, the longest reigning champ, and a double champ. After a 3-year break, Jones made a dramatic return to the UFC in March 2023, stepping up to the heavyweight division. In his debut heavyweight fight, he faced Cyril Gane for the vacant UFC Heavyweight Championship. Jones dominated the match, quickly submitting Gane in the first round to claim the title. This victory not only secured his position as the new champion, but also extended his impressive unbeaten streak to 19 consecutive fights, bringing his record to 27 contests. Now, Jones was all set to defend his heavyweight title against former UFC champion Stipe Miocic at UFC 295 in Madison Square Garden. Unfortunately, he had to withdraw from the event due to a torn pectoral muscle sustained during his fight camp training. As a result, the spotlight shifted to Alex Pereira and Jiri Prochazka, who took over as the main event, and in a thrilling fight, Pereira defeated former champion Jiri and claimed the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship. This victory was not just another win. It marked Pereira as the only fighter in UFC history to secure both the middleweight and light heavyweight titles, achieving this feat in the shortest time and with the fewest bouts ever required by a UFC athlete to win titles in 2 divisions. By the time UFC 300 rolled around, Pereira was ready to defend his light heavyweight title against another formidable opponent, former champion Jamal Hill. Once again, Pereira showcased his superior striking skills and knockout power, sending Hill to the mat in the first round. This victory added Hill to an impressive list of former champions Pereira has defeated, including names like Jiri Prochazka, Jan Blachowicz, Israel Adesanya, and Sean Strickland. Fresh off his win at UFC 300, Pereira openly contemplated the idea of moving up to the heavyweight division, potentially securing a 3rd title and becoming the first UFC fighter to win championships across 3 divisions. But it's not just Pereira flirting with the idea. It seems Jon Jones might even be more interested. See, in a series of detailed social media posts, Jones expressed his interest in defending his UFC Heavyweight Championship against Pereira, laying out his thoughts on Twitter, saying, "If Alex P became champion of the heavyweight division, would you guys consider him the GOAT? Being back in the gym has got me thinking differently. That fight after Stipe may be the next biggest move I can make. This killer has already defeated so many champions and is already considered a legend by millions around the world. It was the most massive fight the UFC could make. Give Alex a chance to avenge all those great Brazilian champions I've defeated. It would be absolutely massive. A guy like Alex has a chance to be a division champion and a GOAT versus the actual GOAT. Same age, different strengths. No one can argue that this would be the biggest fight in MMA history. There's absolutely no fight that generates a payday like that. Marketing would be insane. Now, it's clear Jones is super pumped about possibly going up against Alex Pereira, and it's not just about defending his heavyweight title. He's thinking big, aiming to create a match that MMA fans all over the world would be buzzing about. Even though UFC President Dana White has said the fight between Jones and Stipe Miocic is still happening later this year, once Jones is good to go, everyone's already chatting about a face-off between Jones and Pereira. At a fan Q&A in Rio de Janeiro, Alex Pereira kept it cool when asked about the potential matchup with Jones. Yes, he's already hinting at moving up to heavyweight to chase a 3rd UFC belt, so the idea of fighting Jones isn't too far out there for him. Speaking in Portuguese, Pereira said, "He said he wants this fight, and my job is to fight. It's up to the promotion to decide, so let's see what happens now." Pereira also shared some thoughts on his career moves. "After my last fight, I mentioned wanting to move up to heavyweight, but I didn't get any response from the UFC, so I kind of moved on from that idea. But then Jon Jones dropped me a message last night, and now I'm thinking it could be back on the table. Being a champ in 3 divisions is tough, and not many guys even try it. But if I get the chance, I'm all in. I just want to make everyone happy and give my family a better life. That said, Jon Jones is all in for a fight with Alex Pereira and the feeling is mutual. However, there are a few hurdles in the way. For starters, Jones has already committed to a rematch with Stipe Miocic, and he's made it clear that he wants to tackle this challenge before considering any other opponents. He's even got a return date tentatively set, and he's just waiting for the official word from the UFC. As it stands, the UFC calendar is stacked, with big events like UFC 303 featuring Conor McGregor vs Michael Chandler on June 29th, and UFC 304 in Manchester, England on July 27th, followed by UFC 305 in Perth, Australia on August 17th. The schedule is tight. There's also a big event planned for Mexican Independence Day in September at the Sphere in Las Vegas for UFC 306. Given Jones's huge draw in the US, it's unlikely he'll fight overseas. If he doesn't make the September card, we probably won't see him back in action until much later in the year, possibly around November or December. If he wins that fight, he's expected to go head-to-head with current interim UFC Heavyweight champion Tom Aspinall in a title unification bout. On the flip side, Alex Pereira is coming off a stunning first-round knockout victory over Jamal Hill at UFC 300 title for the first time. His next likely opponent is Yuri Prochazka, who he previously dethroned. He come back at UFC 300, earning a $300,000 bonus for his knockout on Alexander Rakic. Despite this, it's been less than 6 months since Pereira and Prochazka's last showdown, and many fans aren't eager for a quick rematch, as they don't expect to completely transform Prochazka. After Prochazka, Pereira could face a worthy opponent like Magomed Ankalaev. The speculation about who fights next is endless, but any match involving Pereira is bound to draw attention, thanks to his knockout prowess. Now, imagine pairing him up with Jon Jones, considered by many as the greatest fighter of all time. That's a matchup that could set the MMA world on fire. Now, it's understandable why Jon Jones is hyping up a potential showdown with Alex Pereira as possibly the biggest fight in MMA history, and it's easy to see why. Pereira, a rising star in the UFC, has exploded onto the scene faster than almost anyone except Ronda Rousey. After dominating in kickboxing, Pereira made a splashy entry into the UFC, quickly grabbing titles in 2 different weight classes, a feat only achieved by a select few. His track record of knocking out former UFC champions in a remarkably short period has only added to his allure. On the flip side, Jones is a legendary figure himself, having been a dominant force in the light heavyweight division before claiming the heavyweight title with a swift submission of Cyril Gane in 2023. A match between these two powerhouse fighters, each a 2-division UFC champion, would not only be a clash of titans, but could also rival the biggest events in UFC history in terms of hype and financial impact. To put it in perspective, the most massive UFC pay-per-view to date, UFC 229, which featured Conor McGregor vs Khabib Nurmagomedov, pulled in 2.4 million buys and generated over $180 million. That fight was fueled by one of the most heated rivalries in UFC history. While Jones vs Pereira doesn't carry the same personal animosity, the matchup is electrifying in its own right. Both fighters are peaking at the same age, with their 37th birthdays coming up in July, and may not have many more chances to make such a significant impact. This fight isn't just a sporting contest, it's a mega event that could draw viewers in droves, driven by the story of Pereira chasing a title in a 3rd weight class, and Jones looking to cement his status as the GOAT. The potential earnings from such a fight are a huge motivator for Jones, who understands the financial windfall that a bout of this magnitude could generate. So it's clear that the financial upside is another major reason why Jones is eager to step into the octagon with Pereira. However, some people also think Jon Jones sees Alex Pereira as an easier target, hoping to secure another title defense before possibly retiring. Pereira, an exceptional striker, has yet to compete above the light heavyweight limit. This puts Jones at a significant advantage, especially with his well-developed grappling skills from his wrestling background. Despite this, Pereira isn't small by any means, walking around at about 230 pounds, so stepping up to heavyweight could be a smooth transition for him physically. Jones has struggled in the past with fighters who can match his height and reach, such as Gustafsson, suggesting Pereira could use his own size to his advantage. Plus, Pereira's boxing and his effective use of calf kicks might give him the upper hand in striking. The key for Pereira would be his ability to defend against Jones's takedowns. If he manages that, he could pose a real threat. However, if Jones gets Pereira to the ground, it could spell trouble for him. Then there's the issue of overlooking other deserving heavyweight fighters like Tom Aspinall. Aspinall is a true heavyweight who's made a name for himself by taking out some big opponents, even picking up the interim heavyweight title recently. He's been trying to get a fight with Jones, but it seems like Jones isn't too keen, focusing instead on fighting an older, less active Stipe Miocic, and now possibly Pereira. It kinda looks like Jones might be dodging Aspinall, though it's hard to say for sure because Jones has already proven himself time and again. At the end of the day, the UFC loves setting up big fights that pull in the crowds and sell loads of pay-per-views, even if it doesn't always make the most sense from a competition standpoint. If Pereira decides to jump up to heavyweight and take on Jones, it wouldn't be surprising to see him get the shot over Aspinall. Fighting Jones would be the biggest challenge Pereira has faced yet in the UFC. He proved he could hang with the best when he fought Adesanya for the middleweight belt, but Jon Jones is on a whole different level. What do you think about Jon Jones potentially squaring off against Alex Pereira? And who's your pick to win this bout if it happens? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more UFC videos.